10. Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation With. I'm your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today is the owner and founder of That Guy Productions, Nick Mons, and Nick joins us all the way from the coast. Good morning, Nick. How are you doing?
Good morning, Dave. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and I hope we can enlighten the listeners on what we do.
I'm sure we can, but before we go anywhere, I have to explain one thing, that you and I worked together, more than 30 years ago on a production at a local radio station. It was you, myself, and the inimitable Richard Jones. For some reason, well, we know why, we used to call you Snom, which was your surname backwards. I was Dave the Unshaved. And just before we went on air with this, we were discussing this because I find calling you Nick too formal. So now that the viewers know the background to that, I'm going to call you Snom from here on in. And you can, if you wish, refer to me as Dave the Unshaved, because I am now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and I feel a bit more comfortable speaking to you and being known as Snom, because as we were saying off air, that just feels a bit too formal for the two of us. And yes, so, yeah, and just a background to how Snom came about. It was Richard Jones. I started as a sound engineer for him on his breakfast show. He broke his arm horsing around with a friend, and he phoned me
one day
and said, "Yeah," and he phoned me around and he said to me, "Listen, I need you to drive my desk," which for those who are not understand what a radio desk driving is, pushing all the buttons and making everything sound great. Mm-hmm. So basically the presenter talks and they have the good time and I just take all the mistakes as it goes along. But anyway, cutting a long story short, he said to me, "I can't call you Nick on air. I've thought about this and Snom is a perfect fit for you." And that was it back in sort of 1998, somewhere there.
Somewhere around
and then,
there,
yeah. And then you joined what was known as the Hectic Eclectic Breakfast Show on Canna FM.
Indeed it was. What a great show that was. But that's not why we're chatting today. We'll get the reminiscences out of the way, but you're wearing the shirt this morning that says That Guy. But you know what, Snom, what you should have done for your shirt, that should have said This Guy.
Yeah. So it's quite funny how the name of my company came about. My brother-in-law, he's a very nice guy. We were chatting, and one day we were sitting around at a family function, and he turned around and he said, "Nick, stop being that guy." And I went, "Oh, that's a perfect name for my business." Because, and also generally, if people are looking for a company, they always go, "That's the guy to contact."
I would patent that. I really would. I would put a copyright behind that so that nobody else can use that guy.
Well, I'm lucky enough. I've got the email address in South Africa, and I've got
wonderful.
the company name. There are others around that have That Guy Productions, but they are video. We are audio specialists.
Okay. So now that we've got to that and we've segued very nicely into what I wanted to talk to you about today, is firstly, what is a podcast? And because people say to me, what we're doing now is a podcast. And I'm going, it's not, because it's video rather than audio. So is there a difference now?
Yes. So Dave, in other words, like you, so if people wanted to call, you do a video podcast. So okay. You know, on camera and everyone can see our faces. And then once you and I are finished doing the recording, which this is being done, you will go and mix it and do all the great things to put out the final product when you're ready to air the show. So with what I do, very similar. We use Zoom mostly to contact our guests around wherever they may be. So we find for what we do, it's easier not to have a camera on people. People seem a bit more relaxed and easier to talk to. And what we try to do with our presenters, that they actually talk to the people like they are the experts. So it's just like a coffee cup chats that we're having.
Okay.
So just like we are having, and then I would say, so like you were, if this was a country music podcast, which you were very well known for on your back at Canada, besides being on our breakfast show. So if we were talking about country music, we would be talking to you about that without a camera on. And then once it's done, I then take the audio and then edit it and add the bits and pieces that goes into it. And then from there, I use a platform called Podbean Live, which is a free application from your cell phone and from your stores, your app stores. And then you just type in whatever the name of the show is, and then you'd listen on your phone. And that's the beauty of what I do. Is it's all mobile. It also goes on to Spotify, LinkedIn, etc. Pretty much all the social media platforms that can take audio. The only one that we don't feature on is Instagram. For some reason, Instagram changed their rules a couple of years ago about doing audio, so they own mainly a video channel. And then from there, the other beauty of it is that once people have listened to it, they share it amongst themselves, and that gains you your audience around the world.
Okay. Have you, and before we get into the various types of podcasts that you do or can do or want to do, have you had feedback from people in really weird places? I mean, I remember one of my first blog postings was read in Guam. And I'm going, but who would read travel and things in Guam, for goodness sake? It's an American military base in the middle of nowhere. Not even the American military know where it is. That's how tiny. It's a pinprick in the ocean. My question then is, have you had feedback from people like on a boat in the middle of the ocean going, we're listening to a podcast of yours?
I've had people in Havana, Cuba, listening to a podcast, and the funny thing about it, that podcast was a cricket podcast. So the fact that the Cubans were actually listening to a cricket audio podcast, that you always relate Cuba with baseball. They're very good baseball country. So I guess baseball, cricket, put it the same. But yes, and also the one person I had from somewhere in the Antarctic. So that's the nice thing about podcasting, is that you actually don't know where and how in the world people are listening to you. And I think, unlike terrestrial radio where you and I come from, your frequency is based in the area or the province that you're broadcasting from. And the only other way people could listen to you was when they did online radio. You click on the app and you can listen anywhere in the world. And then from there, you'd get feedback. But before then, when you and I were on radio, none of those things existed. You only had you had calls from wherever your broadcast footprint was.
It was normally from a family member going, we're listening to you this morning. That was your entire audience type of thing.
No, well, I think Dave, you're quite modest. We were actually at one stage, we were very lucky. We were in the radio revival of, when I say revival, for those who are maybe younger listening to this, in 1996, when I started, radio became free. The big brother stopped
asking for listeners' licenses.
The SABC wasn't the only radio or broadcasting company on radio that we had to listen to, and only other radio stations that had branched out outside of the SABC was Capital Radio 604, which broadcast in KZN and Gauteng, because they used to be above the late night owls in Auckland Park. That was where their studio was.
And then also we had Radio Bop, don't forget. If you could tune into that.
Yeah, and 702, which was
Correct.
the
Swazi
and they
Music
were
Radio,
before and they were a music station before they became
a
a
talk
talk
station.
station.
All right, but
And
you see
then
this.
we became then community radio, which
Yeah,
was where we met.
yeah.
So
My,
and
how
the
things
pod,
have changed, Nick. We sound so old, the two of us, talking of,
yeah, no,
people are going to go, I suppose when they were on radio, they still had valves. No, people,
no,
we had digital stuff. We really did.
yeah, we had what that remember those little mini discs
Yeah. In
with
fact,
it to play.
I still have two mini discs of an interview that I did with Richie Havens. But trying to find somebody to digitize those for me now is almost impossible because nobody has mini disc players anymore.
You know, they're very hard to find. The only person I can think of that still might have one is Mr. Roger McCleary. I think he's about the only person that still has a device. And he's still broadcasting
He is
as
indeed.
much. Yeah,
He is
but
indeed. But enough of all
but
that. Enough of
so
all
so
that.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so we as we digress and we get back to audio, so how that guy productions came about, besides the how I told your viewers about the name.
Mm.
We I got involved in podcasting because in the 2020s, everyone heard I was at the SABC and I worked for their Radio 2000, which majority of everyone would know is the sporting radio station, or carried presidential speeches, and
All the
then
important
eventually,
stuff.
yeah, and they became a radio station. And also on one of your other jobs that you used to do, I used to show your students from
You used
Damlin
to train
about
my students. You did indeed.
and
Yeah.
show them the studio and give them radio backgrounds. And in 2020, everyone read in the newspaper about the Section 189 scenario at the SABC. Anyway, got to my point where I had to make a decision, either stay or go. And I decided to go because a whole bunch of friends told me that you've got all this knowledge of radio and stuff, take it into podcasting and make it go. And I'm very lucky. You know my wife Candace, she also worked with us, and she said to me, go for it, make your own radio, make your own podcasting company.
Right.
And then from there, I contacted a few friends of mine and I said, well, I'm doing this. And they were generously enough to start letting me do podcasting for them and other things. I've even done an audio book for a school. So for matrics, we did.
Oh, wow.
They needed to do a book, and a friend of mine said, "Well, matrics, when they'll read the book in class, but I won't get them to read it when they go home. So can you make me an audio book?" So they did, and they loaded it on their cell phone so that they could read it and listen, or even ask questions, which was great. So it was called The Theory of Flight, the book that I did. I just, forgive me, I can't remember the author's name. So
Doesn't matter. Those that are interested will look it up, or they'll come to your podcast and your platform and find it there. The majority of your podcasts at the moment seem to be with Louis Carpus. Now that name will ring bells for certain people, and they'll go, "My goodness me, is the man still alive? Let alone broadcasting?"
Yes.
And you've got over 300 podcasts with Louis now, in and around sport and people from that industry, for want of a better term.
Correct. So Louis, he's been around on various platforms. He came from Capital Radio 604. He was then, majority of people would have remembered him doing a sports show with Glenn Hicks and himself on Radio 5, when Radio 5 was Radio 5, called the Tiger Wheel and Tire Sports Hour.
Okay.
And then from there, he got onto, he was on SABC TV covering various sports. He was also on Radio 2000 doing cricket commentary and other things. And then he moved on to Super Sport and worked with the late Barry Lamson.
Lambert.
Sorry, my pardon. Sorry, poor Barry Lambert will. Sorry, Barry Lamson will kill me. He's still alive and kicking and drinking wine, and he was a cricket umpire. Uh, Lambert, the late Barry Lambert, um, and then over the years, obviously, what people need to realize is that as radio progresses, they find that certain people just don't fit the station anymore and put them into things. But Louis is working on, besides me, he's working on Chai FM, the radio station. He does sports reports there in the afternoon and the morning.
Okay.
And then so our podcast is called From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. So we focus on how you get certain things in sports. So we've been lucky enough to speak to sportsmen and women and administrators in South Africa. And we are asking the questions that you won't be asked on a radio station, in a sense, because let's put the viewer to on internet or podcasting. There's not many regulations, and not to say that we're going to rip a person apart or do anything.
But you can if you want to.
But we can ask the pertinent questions a bit more with authority than
would you would on Snom, would you then tackle, or have you tackled this whole David Teager, the under-19 captain, who they've removed his captaincy, but they've kept him in the team? I don't understand that, and I don't want to get into the politics of that. But do you think that will resolve itself anytime soon?
So we are looking at. I have contact with various people in the cricketing forum. I'm lucky. I have. One of my regular guests is a gentleman called Andrew Breetsky, who's the CEO of South African Cricketers Association, which is known as SACA, S-A-C-A, if people want to look them up. And he sort of said to me, the problem is that under-19 cricket in South Africa is considered an amateur sport. So they unfortunately don't look after the interests of an amateur, they look after the interests of the professional cricketers. But we are looking at we have to get an answer to this scenario. How do you, the poor young man being told that he's going to captain his team to the under-19 Men's Cricket World Cup here in South Africa, which starts this Friday, and a week before get told that there was all the hoo-ha around it. And like you say, this is not a platform to discuss it, but yes, we are looking into that. We've also looked at, yesterday we played a podcast for the young man that's going to captain the Proteas cricket team to New Zealand, Neil Brand. And their team is being called the Protea C Squad. Because
that is so unfortunate. It's like saying this is Protea Light. We're gonna send a squad that's like Help Mekaar under 15 Ds. It's not fair. It really isn't. It's the Proteas. Why is it the C team?
So because all the top Proteas are playing in this current Betway SA20 tournament, and Cricket South Africa and the organizers of Betway SA20 signed a memorandum saying that all the Proteas would play until it's for a month, so it's from the 10th of Jan to the 10th of Feb, and they're not allowed to do any international duty.
No, but then by the same token, Snom, I have to ask you, because it was a debacle. The last Newlands test between South Africa and India, 26 wickets on the first day. It's never been heard of. Has anybody been taken to task for the pitch that was prepared? I don't know who it was prepared for, because it certainly wasn't international level, unless you like watching wickets fall.
So Dave, I think on that, yeah. So we've also invested. So we have one of our cricketing correspondents and sort of expert that we use is Omar Henry.
Okay, I
He was
remember
a
him.
former Protea all-rounder. He was there when the 22 one ball incident took place when our first World Cup, and he was also convener of the men's cricket team selectors, and he
Right.
was saying that look, the poor groundsman that's at Newlands in Cape Town is working under a lot of pressure, and plus, unfortunately, the Western Province Cricket Union or Cricket Association is unfortunately facing financial issues. So
yeah,
at other grounds, you normally have a groundsman that stays there through the year, prepares the pitch and things, but due to cost cutting, he only comes a few days a week.
right.
So
We saw the result.
And look, from a perspective, yes, test matches should last between 3 or 4 days, especially
not 45 minutes.
But that also shows you, besides the poor groundsman, unfortunately, maybe not getting it right, it also shows you how this T20 cricket has dominated so much that the batsman must also take a bit of responsibility. They weren't sitting there like the good old days when used to be a bit of a block and maybe 2 runs and a pigeon would fly across the pitch. And these days it's now all hash bash and or we would know growing up listening to radio with Charles Fortune as a commentator.
There's a different class of commentator altogether. I don't think Charles would handle the modern game if he was to come back and be offered
I think
that, because he's just not fast enough. I mean, these modern guys are all over the place. But anyway, once again, we're digressing from that guy, which is what I wanted to talk to you about. So back to Louis Karpus, from the boardroom to the locker room. Do you have any other regular podcasts for people who aren't sporting orientated? Although boardroom to locker room is not necessarily pure sport. It's taking the one situation and transposing it into another and showing that you can use sporting stuff in a business situation.
Yes, and also we also, just to finish on that point, we also use from the boardroom to the locker room to give sports in this country that would never get media. So last year I was quite proud. We spoke to the Federation of the Tug of War in South Africa.
It's a big deal. It does exist.
Yeah, and they won gold medals and bronze medals, and you won't believe there's about 900 tug of war clubs. So when you all think that you just went to school, put the tug of war, for those of us who couldn't sprint or take part in an athletics day at school, you were always put in either the sack race or the tug of war competition for your house, and you won points. No, it's a serious business, and those are the type of things we even spoke to. Obviously, we talk to equestrian people. So we're giving sports that, because we also want to tell the youth that in this country, you can play other sports that are not rugby, cricket, soccer, the top three. And there is and obviously we talk to tennis. We have Christopher van Rensburg. Yeah, we tried to find somebody, but they were getting back. And then obviously I'm trying to actually do one on this new phenomenon, paddle.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different kettle of fish. There was also, they played it in Delta Park. It's like air golf. There were baskets on trees. And I know that one of those guys went overseas. There is a Yikskate club in Pilgrim's Rest. As you come into Pilgrim's Rest, from the Dahlstrom side, there is a Yikskate club there. So maybe it's something you want to look into.
Yeah. And then to answer your question, yes, I do another podcast. I do a podcast called Unique Yet Connected, and we at the end of last year, it was rated the 5th best family podcast in South Africa.
Well done, you.
It's called it's about family constellations, which is sort of tells you about ancestry and where maybe things in
Okay.
your sort of things that may not be going in your life, and it might go back to somewhere one of your ancestors might be holding on to something, or
Okay.
something happened to them that's now overfly. It's hosted by two lovely ladies, a lady called Kenga and another lady called Nolisa. It's a bi-weekly podcast. So so it goes out every every second Sunday, and the next this coming Sunday is their 39th episode. So I've been working with them for nearly 2 years. And obviously,
Wonderful.
if you go and look for Unique Yet Connected on various platforms,
You can find them.
Spotify, Apple,
Okay.
you'll find there, and it's evergreen podcast, and you can listen from the first to the current.
You can binge listen.
Yeah, but and they also, but the good part about it is that they look in their podcast, they always say there is a little bit of homework to do, but it's pretty much, and then afterwards, if you feel sort of compelled, they give you details to contact them privately and take it further. So that, and then we're busy getting into an entrepreneurial podcasting with a company here where I am in, have to say it, Plettenberg Bay, Dave.
You're allowed to say it, because I'm going to ask you more
Plettenberg
about
Bay.
how people get in contact with you in just a moment. So that's what this is all about, is promoting.
So in Plettenberg Bay, where we live, we're working with a company called BizRev, which is an entrepreneurial company down here, explaining about things like tax, which everyone loves, and explaining how they can help you with that, and growing your business and growing these type of businesses that you and I in podcasting, and sort of any small business, what you need to sort of, as everyone knows, that when you start your own business, you're the bottle washer, the receptionist, etc. And you all look, and then you sort of got clients, and then you sort of say, oh, what do I do with the money, and how that works, and they help you with so those are the main ones, but we also focus on helping companies to tell them about ourselves. So if you want to talk to people about what you do as a business, we are willing to help you do that for your social media, so that you can explain to people. So, everyone always talks to the spokesperson of a company or the CEO. They never talk to the guy that's, like I just said, the receptionist or something, just to sort of
people
say
at the coal
why
face.
they're there. So those are the things. So we're looking at the alternative ways of communicating with people, because what I found after COVID was that, this is where I was lucky. I started my company in the midst of the pandemic, excuse me. And we found out it was a lot easier to talk to people using podcasts than
just with that in mind, Nick, because we coming to the end, would you believe? Time flies when you're having fun. People don't have to physically go into a studio, do they? I mean, can they record at home and send? How does it work? How does sort of give me the elevator pitch for how your product works?
So basically, our product works exactly like you say. No one has to leave the comfort of their home, and I can record you basically sitting on a beach or in your office, or as long as you have either the following: Zoom, Teams, or Google video. So they all record platforms, and then basically we set up a time, we sort of get everything involved. I send you a link of, let's just use Zoom link, and then from there we record, and then once it's been recorded, then, like I said, we edit, and then we send back the client what the final product sounds like. They listen to us, and then they tell us if they're happy, or if they need any like modifications to what they do, and then we redo it. And then from there we do it. But yeah, one of the companies that I'm very proud to be working for the third year in a row is the Two Oceans Marathon NPC. We're the official audio podcast company to them. And last year we even created an internet radio station platform for the expo.
Oh,
So we can even
wonderful.
create
Well done, Nick.
it's internet radio. So yeah, so who would thought and that's the beauty. It's the fact that I've used all my radio experience from doing it this way to put into this business and help people create platforms that they
I mean,
can.
what is it? You must have close on 40 years, maybe a bit more of radio experience now, at
I
least.
started 96, so in 96 was my, so about, yeah, nearly 30 years in the 28 now, because we're
So
20,
so
yeah, 2024.
If people want to contact you, if they've watched this and go, hey, this is something maybe we can look at, how do they find you?
Okay, well, yeah, they can go to, if you go to, we're on social, so we're on the Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, so it's all under That Guy Productions or Nick Mons, but mostly That Guy Productions.
Okay.
And on Twitter, we're That Guy Product One is our Twitter handle.
Okay.
On Instagram, we're That Guy Productions, and the best, and if you want to, best way to contact me is on my cell, which is 078 915 0088, and I'll repeat that, it's 078 915 0088, or visit our website, which is www.thatguyproductions.co.za.
Great stuff. There you go. All done and dusted. Would you believe? Another show for both of us under our belts. Snom, thank you so very much for joining me this morning. I hope your business goes from strength to strength. We had a lot of fun back in the day, and who knows, maybe we'll work together in 2024. You never know what the universe might have in store for either or both of us. So best of luck to That Guy Productions going forward. All the best. I know that you're starting a major build in Plettenberg Bay shortly. I wish you all the best with that. I look forward to seeing photographs and video of that. And once again, That Guy Productions, look them up if you are in need of this sort of service. Snom, thanks so much for being a guest here on In Conversation With.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you for your time, and I wish the same to In Conversation With. Hopefully it gets strength to strength, and I'm sure at some point during the year we may get together, and who knows, maybe you might even have to host a podcast for me somewhere in Johannesburg.
Only a pleasure. My guest today on In Conversation With, the inimitable Nick Mons from That Guy Productions.